Hello there, good evening, good morning, good afternoon. Right, part one, the introduction. Part one, the introduction. Right then, good evening, good morning, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Paul, I'm also called Nik Nak, and this may hopefully be the first of many posts on either my blog, Nik Nak's Old Peculiar, or on my YouTube channel, Mr. Cuddy2977, that you've watched. I write quizzes called The Daily Teaser, and I talk about movies and TV shows I've watched. That's assuming you want to hear what I've got to say about them, of course. It might prove interesting to you. At any rate, that's what I do in between living the rest of my life. Job hunting, gossiping with friends, sleeping, eating, looking after my nephew when he's not got a headache, and watching the world go by on a bench on Wally Hill. That's if I manage to get out of the house, of course, and assuming that the bench is dry. It was raining today, wouldn't you know it? I also have a possibly unhealthy interest in computers and a very limited layman's understanding of the subject, enough that very occasionally my friends ask me for something. They ask me for buying advice. Very simple buying advice. Something I'm happy to offer as long as the friends in question are happy to ask me and realise that I don't know everything and that they should also ask Tom and Dick and Harry. At any rate, I know a little about these things. I'm happy to offer advice and opinion, but fully expect them and you to take my advice with a pinch of salt and asking it around amongst other friends. I'm a layman, I'm not an expert, and I'm very aware that there's a hell of a lot of twaddle out there. Right, with all of that little intro out of the way, here's the rest of the article. Here's the first thing you have to ask yourself. What do you need from a computer? What are you going to use it for? And what, therefore, said it already, what do you need rather than think you want? Let's be clear here. There's a few different types of computers, different types of device that take a bit of data, do something to it with an app, and then put the results somewhere. Whether that data is sending text to someone or putting this scene into that video, displaying this link on that screen, playing this song on them speakers right there, what have you. When I'm doing something with a computer, when I'm sending emails, making videos, what have you, I am talking about a desktop. But the phrase equally applies to laptops, tablets, phones, smart TVs, hell, even smartwatches these days. You'll be emailing from your phone, you'll be playing a song on a smartwatch, you'll be streaming from a tablet to a smart TV, whatever. When I say, what are you going to use this computer for, you're going to have a lot of different answers. If you're going to be doing relatively simple stuff, you're going to be messaging friends, using Facebook or Instagram, doing some online shopping, keeping your books, you're not necessarily going to need anything powerful. You can probably get away with a phone, a tablet, maybe a watch, but possibly also a lightweight laptop, especially the ones known as notebooks or netbooks, something that's small and portable rather than powerful. If you're doing something heavier, gaming, content creation, computer-aided design can be quite hefty, coding, something along those lines, you're going to need something a bit more powerful, a specced-out laptop, a muscular desktop. I do a lot of video editing, for example, so the most recent computer I bought is a Mac Mini over there and was the most powerful I could afford under the circumstances. Some gamers I know have far more powerful rigs, as will anybody doing intense design work. And if we're going to be doing any of this on the go, we're going to need something portable, however powerful it is. My point is simply this, that when you go to buy a computer, you need to have a good idea of what you need, and you need to buy accordingly. Which brings me to my next point. The cash. Let's talk about cash, shall we? And let me ask you this. How much do you intend to spend on a computer? There's going to be a figure that you're roughly comfortable paying, isn't there? Just as an example, I started writing this piece in December of 2024, and I bought my most recent computer. It's a Mac Mini sitting right there in October of that year. So that's only a few months ago now. I spent 999 quid on that new Mini, roughly $1,200 or 1,200 euros, according to the quick Google search I did at the time. £799 of that got me the new Mini. An extra 200 paid for a 1 terabyte solid state drive rather than the default 512 gigabyte drive. Absolutely worth it if you're making a lot of videos. You need to have as much room as possible. That, plus a few extra quid for a new mouse and keyboard, brought my total to 1,257 quid, approximately 1,500 euros or $1,600. I also spent some 300 quid on a large capacity external drive to use as backup, bringing the running total to 1,557. I had a monitor already, and I managed to offset the total cost by about 140 quid. That's 170 euros or $178, selling a pair of older model external drives. So effectively, I spent 1,417 quid. Don't know how much that is in euros or dollars, but that's how much I spent at the time in pounds. And that was a price at the time I paid it, was a one I felt comfortable paying. It was a money I felt comfortable taking out of what I had available. My point is this: the price that you are going to be paying for a computer, or that you think you are going to be paying for a computer, is not necessarily the total price. Even if you get a deal on a desktop that includes a monitor, keyboard and mouse, even if you buy a laptop or a tablet that don't necessarily need them because they're built in, the price on the box isn't going to involve everything you need. That total price that you're going to be comfortable with, you might have to adjust. You might not be buying those extras right now, but you're going to need to budget for extras at some point. Right, now I can hear what you're saying from here. You're saying, in all probability, oh good God, Paul, extras? What extras? Let's start with the one everybody, I think, forgets about, but that everything else, I believe, depends on. Quite simply, an internet connection. How many of us have one? I don't know. I really don't. But I'm very aware that many of us that do have one are either just using it on their phones, or they're using a full-on landline and router for no other reason than to watch YouTube videos on their smart TVs. I do it myself occasionally. I'm also very aware that many of us don't have one, even if it's a smartphone. Those of us on benefits will be struggling to pay for one unless we're using one of the rare social tariffs provided by some internet service providers, just as a thought. But that connection is essential for anyone that owns a modern computer, if for no other reason than this. A computer software gets updated over the internet. They don't send out floppy disks with updates on them anymore. On top of those updates for your operating system and your software, you can access a lot of useful services online. I'm job hunting and have various different medical conditions, so accessing online services is a bloody lifesaver. As is being able to contact people through various messaging services. An internet connection is much like a car or a bus or a plane, is vital to the way we live today. It's so damn useful. Another thing we're going to need money for, and this is an essential, I think, is backup. Local or online backup. There's no point in us sitting there and saying, there's nothing going to happen to my computer, it's impervious to damage, and its wings are like a shield of steel. Oh no, they bloody aren't. As I found out when the power supply on my old iMac gave up the ghost and caused it to turn over and die. As a neighbour found out when her laptop hard drive went. as a friend found out when he, this is always going to make me laugh and is him all over, when he spilled orange juice on his desktop computer. The big difference between me and the neighbour and the friend with the orange juice is that I and the neighbour had backup, but I'm still not sure Mr. Orange did as well. But that's kind of my point about it, is that it's so vital that when something like this happens, it's not a luxury, it's a necessity. Now, I've relied on Apple's Time Machine app for years, and all I've needed to do to make it work is plug in an external drive and point Time Machine at the drive so that it backs up my machine to that external drive. So, when the time came, it's helped me transfer data between old and new Macs. It's helped me recover my data when a hard drive has failed on an old Mac Pro. And last but not least, when I bought a new Mac, it allowed me to transfer stuff from the dead iMac to its newly purchased replacement. Being able to, or unable to access my files in the meantime also prompted me to get some online storage so I can store copies of my files if and when that happens again. It's so I can access my files from anywhere, any kind of computer. The point I'm trying to make is this, is that you are going to need backup as well, whether it's online or an external drive hooked to your machine. No two ways about it. You need backup. This means you will need free or commercial backup software, an external drive for backups, and online storage for your backups. It's the old 3-2-1 backup strategy. 3 backups, 2 of them, whatever it is, and 1 of them offline. That's one set of expenses. Another is software. Yes, I am aware there's a lot of free software about. I've been using lots of it for years. I've relied on LibreOffice and OpenOffice for my basic productivity needs for some time. I've used VLC to play and stream media. I've used Handbrake and Make MKV to back up optical discs for the same sort of time. And I've used Apple's free Pages, Numbers, and Keynote software. They give them away free with every new Mac. But as a YouTuber, I'm very aware that I may need a copy of Final Cut Pro at some point. It could come in handy, and it's going to be a lot more powerful than iMovie, which is the tool I'm making this with. I'm also aware that the free productivity software I use may well be less powerful than some commercial software. I am very aware, therefore, that at some point I'm going to have to pay for some software, as will you, no doubt whatsoever at all. And that needs to be budgeted for. As a last extra, and one that is way down on the list, possibly, is quite simply entertainment. You will need that internet link, and you will probably find having an extra computer to access some other entertainment services, whether it's a subscription to Spotify, whether it's Apple Music, whether it's Netflix, whether it's free catch-up services, whether it's online or offline games. We are going to need entertaining. And that entertainment will need money to buy it, and will need a computer to go with it, depending on the entertainment you've got. That will cost. Whether it's just a connected computer with ability to use catch-up services, even if we're not playing for Disney Plus, we are still going to need to pay something. My point in all this rambling is simply this. We're going to need to spend more than we think, and technology costs more than we expect. So, to round all this off, and in conclusion, what do I tell you? Possibly not much more than the complete twaddle that I already have. All I can do is try and offer you a metaphor of some description. An ex-girlfriend of mine, let's call her Norma, had been brought up in and around cars and in and around her dad's garage. She was quite a good mechanic, as was at least one of her cousins. Her stepfather and her eventual husband were cabbies. Most of her female relatives again, were all very good drivers, as was she herself. And she got lumbered with a boyfriend, me, hello, who couldn't tell a brake pedal from a gear stick, to be honest. That's possibly a whole other story. At any rate, Norma always tried to encourage me to learn to drive, as did my mother and sisters. But Norma made the effort in part because there were times she wanted us to go out as a couple and do so when I was driving and she could get drunk, which is possibly a whole other story on top of all of that. But between all that, she'd try encouraging me to drive. And between that and God knows whatever else was going on, she also made a very good point, one I'll try and make here. She tried to make the very good point that when you bought a car, went to price up a car, went to look around and research a car, the price on the tag wasn't the total cost. You might be looking at, I don't know, $2.5 grand for a cheap second-hand wreck, 18,000 for a new hatchback, 30,000 for a new saloon, or anywhere upwards of $500,000 for a brand new Maserati, whatever. Norma's point was that the figure on the price tag wasn't what's now called the total cost of ownership. It wasn't what you'd be paying to drive your car and run it. You'd have the price of the car itself from the dealer. You'd have the cost of the fuel, whether that's petrol, diesel, or electricity from the wall. It's the insurance. It's the spare tyre. It's the safety kit that you need to put in the boot. And for cars in the UK over 3 years old, the annual MOT test, the annual safety checks that you have to have. Computers are the same. The price on the box is not the total cost. There's a net connection, there's software, there's peripherals, there's hardware, upgrades, and there's the inevitable repairs and replacements. When you buy a computer, keep that in mind. The price on the ticket is not the total price. Now, just as a last thought before I go, I should tell you that I started writing this piece, A, before I had a new haircut, and B, back in October 2024, and I'm publishing it and this video now in late January 2025. So there's a few months between starting writing and finishing and uploading the video. So while I've tried to be as generally accurate with my figures as I possibly can, some of the prices, especially the ones in foreign currencies, aren't necessarily current, consistent, or indeed practical. They're going to vary, and your mileage, what you call the price, will be different. With that out of the way, I hope you find this piece informative. I hope you find it educational, and I hope you find it useful. If it is, please leave me a comment. Please subscribe to both the blog and the video channel. And please, please, please feel free to have a go at one of the daily teaser quizzes. Until next time, stay safe, have fun, be good, and be seeing you.